Hi, I'm Chike Coleman. That's Chuck Kaplinsky from the News Gazette, and I'm Chike Coleman from the Wheelchair Watcher. This is Real Reviews, the Cinematic Underground, the show where we talk about movies that are new in theaters and sometimes stuff that's been on DVD and video for a while. It's one of those weeks where it's kind of a big week and a slow week all at the same time. Independence Day 2 is out this week. I unfortunately didn't get to see it. Chuck, I know you probably did.
I did not see it because they did not screen it for critics in the United States.
Is that bad news?
Critics' blurbs that you see before the film has come out or from Europe, where they premiered it a few days earlier.
Jeez, okay. So that doesn't give me much confidence. But one thing we did get to see last week that I wanted to talk to you about is Finding Dory, the latest film from Disney Pixar, directed by Andrew Stanton. Finding Dory tells the tale of Dory, the sidekick from the first film, who immeasurably goes through a crisis because she realizes that she doesn't know who her family is and wants to seek out and find her family. She does this with the help of Nemo and Marlin from Finding Nemo, and along the way meets other friends and characters in terms of sea life, including the literal baby beluga. It's an interesting, unique adventure about trusting yourself and learning that you can conquer anything despite all obstacles, which I'm going to say this first and foremost, I felt deeply engrossed with, basically because the undertone and the theme of this movie happens to be disability and how you can conquer it to do greater things. This is something that in my own life, in my personal everyday to-day life, I struggle with immensely, and to see a character as unique as Dory go through the same types of struggles but in a completely different way is in a way empowering, and I found myself deeply engrossed with this film because of the messages it was giving about disability and positivity and keeping going and fighting for what you want. And in the case of Dory, she's fighting for her family, or to figure out what family is and what it means to her. So I really had a very good time watching Finding Dory. Chuck, what did you think of Finding Dory upon initial impressions and the second viewing?
I enjoyed it. I think the second time it did not hold up for me as much, because in many ways it's much a repeat of the first film, plot-wise. I think that the secret to the Pixar films I've noticed are the supporting characters. If they have good supporting characters, I think then they're well on their road to success. And here they've got some great supporting characters. There's an octopus named Hank who is afraid of the ocean, which is great. There are two seals that they meet in a harbor who are very territorial about the rock that they inhabit. And then you mentioned the beluga whale, and there's also a whale shark who's nearsighted, and a spastic duck who comes into play as well. And all of those, as I say, even though the plot is familiar, these new characters aren't, and I think that that really ends up being the saving grace for this film, other than the moral that it puts forth as well.
I think the thing that particularly was going to take me out of the film, I thought, was going to be the fact that the main character is Dory, and when I saw Finding Nemo originally, I found her very, very annoying and very grating throughout, Marlin's journey to find Nemo, and I found all the little characters that Nemo spent time with to be excellent companions within the Pixar universe. So I wasn't really that excited to see Finding Dory. But I think what really cemented my love of the character has nothing to do with Ellen DeGeneres' vocal performance in the film. It has everything to do with Baby Dory. Baby Dory made me feel things about the character that I didn't think were really possible. And I think the writers made a smart writing decision there to take things back to her very, very far past. Because I related more to that version of Dory than I did the actual main character.
Yeah, we see her in flashback, and also we are introduced to her parents then as well. And you sympathize with them too, because they understand that there's something wrong with their daughter, and they do everything they can to try and protect her, but also try to give her coping mechanisms in order to deal with the world, because they know that she can't stay with them her entire life. So I think that also kind of was an interesting, poignant undercurrent that puts you in her and their corner throughout the entire movie.
And for me, the other thing I want to say is that the visuals underwater are
Stunning.
extremely impressive and stunning. It makes you want to go visit your local aquarium, or if your aquarium's in a big, big city, you want to go see those fish, and you want to see that aquariums. And previous to me in my own childhood, I wasn't really that fond of aquariums, but this film kind of made me intrigued to learn about, marine biology and marine life. So for that actual idea of promoting tourism of those things,
Yeah.
this film sells it really well. And also we get a good random voice cameo by Sigourney Weaver that literally makes no sense.
Oh, it makes sense. It makes sense, and it's funny. I love the manta ray migration as far as visually. That comes early on, and that triggers her memory. And that, even the second time, I got my hair stood up on end because just visually and with the sound and music going on, it was just a knockout moment.
I had the same thing with the turtles this time around. The first time around, I was just like, whoa, I'm riding a roller coaster. And even when I was in the theater watching it with you, because we saw it together, I'd seen that recently, but it still kind of gave me the chills of, whoa, we're riding with this marine life to get to a specific place. And that was really engaging and unique for me. So what did you end up giving the film?
On first knock, I gave it 3.5 out of 4. After seeing it a second time, I'd probably knock that down to 3 out of 4.
I'll probably give it 3 out of 5 because I thought it was a really good Pixar film, but definitely not their best. And I wanted to say this, there is a way to distinguish between the good and the bad Pixar films. The good ones are the ones that really stay with you and you can draw an emotional connection from. The bad ones are the ones that you feel tacked on, and the bad ones being, The Good Dinosaur, Monsters University, Cars 2. Those films to me don't bring any of that emotional resonance that Pixar is so wonderful at portraying. The other thing I wanted to talk with you about today is Independence Day. It's been 23 years since the original Independence Day. Has it been 23 years?
20.
20.
1996.
Oh, jeez.
I watched it again last night with my son.
Okay, so what was that experience? Was it his first time seeing it, first of all?
He fell asleep.
Oh, he fell asleep.
He fell asleep.
That tells you that the film really does drag.
It doesn't hold up. As I was watching it, I didn't realize that there was so much setup time.
Yeah, there is.
Before the destruction occurs. I mean, it's a good 45, 50 minutes before, the aliens actually do what they're supposed to do or do what we expect them to do. So that I did not remember, and that was disappointing.
When I saw this movie in the theaters for the first time back in 1996, I thought, wow, this is spectacular.
I did too. I liked it.
There's this huge setup that they give you with the whole metaphor of chess, which I thought was amazing. And Jeff Goldblum, for all of his acting talents or lack thereof, does a really good job of selling that game of chess that the aliens are playing with the human beings. And then the attack comes and you're just like, oh, I really do feel this. I feel bad, even though I know it's not real. I feel bad for the country enduring this. Now I feel bad for a completely different way because that movie just drags. And for me, there's only like 3 emotional moments in the entire film. And first of which being the death of Harry Connick Jr., because even though you don't really get to see a lot of him on screen, you do realize that he has a tight friendship with Stephen Hillard, Will Smith's character. The fear, the actual death of the First Lady, because you see her outside of the White House with, these civilians trying to survive, and she doesn't survive. And then the whole idea of, I forget what the guy's name is, Daniel Stern's brother? I'm not going to remember this. He's from the Vacation.
You mean Dennis Quaid?
Dennis Quaid, sorry.
You mean Randy Quaid.
Randy Quaid,
Dennis
yeah.
Quaid, not Daniel Stern.
Yeah.
Randy Quaid.
Randy Quaid, yeah, Randy Quaid. His spoiler alert, death in the film caused an emotional punch for me because, he is a bit of a layabout, but he kind of has his redemption toward the end of the film, which I really did like. But the thing that I realize now as a grown adult, having watched it recently like you did, is that it's all like you said. The first 15 minutes is just setup. There's really nothing to emotionally tie you to these events. You're just going off of whatever character traits these characters have and hoping it sticks. And to Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum's credit, they really do make the chemistry pop when they actually get their scenes together. But beyond that, it's a waiting game. The whole movie is a waiting game. And that's the rumors I've heard about Independence Day too. That it's a giant freaking waiting game, and that the action is delivered so late that you really can't feel it. What are your overall impressions of Independence Day now that you've seen it a second time? Well, a third time. I don't know how many times.
Let's see. Smith gives an awful performance. It's very much over the top. I didn't like his performance here at all. And you can't help but, and I remember, as you said, when you first see it, I was impressed with the special effects and the spectacle of it. And those effects certainly don't hold up at all in comparison to what we have today. And you work with what you have at the time.
Yeah.
You can't be faulted with that. But it comes off very cheap here. But that being said, it's nothing but a B movie anyway. As far as its topic and its subject and thing like that. The one moment that really got me and still got me this time, and it's an awful thing to say, but when the president says to kill them all, that was the emotional moment for me. I mean, he means it. We are fully aware of what these aliens are up to at that point, and I hate to say it, but boy, you are just gung-ho at that moment. You want to see all of them die.
Yeah, you do.
So, again, that's probably not the emotional moment I should be proud to say that still works, but for me, that one, I was like, yeah, let's go get them.
Did you have a laugh out loud moment? Because I had at least one rewatching the Independence Day. For me, the most laugh out loud moment was two things. The fact that Will Smith's wife in the movie, Vivica A. Fox, is an exotic dancer.
Why is that a laugh out loud?
It's a laugh out loud moment because they treat the whole thing so casually. Like, oh, she's dancing, and oh, she's found out this bad news on the television about aliens invading Earth. But nobody's scared. Nobody's freaked out. Nobody's really nervous. They're just like, oh, the military will take care of it. It's not until buildings get destroyed that she actually cares. I find that so hilarious. Your entire world is in jeopardy, and you're like, whatever. I'm going to keep going with my job until it's all over. That, to me, is hilarious. And then, of course, what happens with Brent Spiner. Genius. Now, that's over-the-top class acting for me.
I think the one thing I'm looking forward to with the second one is how they're going to ingratiate him back into the mix and what he's going to do.
I've heard about what the whole...
Don't tell me.
I know. I'm not going to say it. I've heard what it is, and it's hilarious. And I don't know. For me, that movie just sticks out as one of those classics of the 90s that worked when you're a kid but fails miserably as an adult.
Well, I think it speaks to how film construction has changed over the last 2 decades, for better or worse, as far as filmmakers jumping in with both feet within 5-10 minutes. I mean, something's happening with movies of this sort. And it seems as though, if that isn't the case, then, something's wrong. I mean, I think they have readjusted the pace of films and what we expect with movies. I think the Bond films certainly toyed with that for years. The Bond films always start with him wrapping up some adventure that we're not privy to, but we see the end of it, and it's a big action scene, and then we get the setup for the film. They certainly started that, well back in the 60s.
Yeah.
But, it's odd because, I was completely engaged 20 years ago when I saw this, and now, the structure of the film is changed, and, the way we perceive things has changed because of it.
Now, how do you think it's changed for the better? Because I look at movies like Central Intelligence, and I see the humor there. In all the action and all the chaos that they're putting on screen, but I don't care about any of them anymore. I feel like that's something that's lost from your B movie, giving us some sort of emotional component to...
Did you see Central Intelligence?
Yes, I did. I still don't feel like I could grasp anything from it other than the action sequences being mildly funny.
Did we talk about this?
We did
on
not.
air?
We have not.
Well, then why aren't we talking about
Okay.
it?
Do you wanna?
No, you go ahead. You're an expert at the summaries. I love your summaries.
I hate my summaries, and you know that. So Central Intelligence, because I had to see this via the internet. It's the worst way
I
to.
don't think you're supposed to say that
Well.
online.
Well, secrets out. Secrets out. The internet stores all of our favorite films. So.
Okay, I'll do this summary because if I have to lift another one of your summaries, I'm not sure what I'm
I
gonna
thought
do.
you said you loved them. Now you're.
Nah, well, you still haven't caught on to my sarcasm.
So you go ahead then.
Oh, thanks. Central Intelligence deals with two high school classmates who couldn't be more different. Kevin Hart plays a guy who they called the Golden Jet, I believe.
Yeah.
He was a superstar at many sports, and we get a flashback in which we see the last day of his senior year in which he is feted in front of the entire student body, and everybody loves him. The principal says at one point, if I could have a son, I would want him to be just like whatever his name is, which is pretty funny. During this thing, however, another character played by The Rock is completely humiliated. Overweight kid singing in the shower, complete nerd. Some bullies grab a hold of him and throw him out naked in front of the entire student body. And the only one who helps him is the Kevin Hart character. Flash forward 20 years, the Hart character, his life has not turned out the way he's wanted it to be. He has married his high school sweetheart, and that's about all that's really come true. He has not realized the huge expectations that have been put on him, and he's starting to get a little bitter. It's the eve of their 20th high school anniversary, and the character played by The Rock shows up, and obviously he has changed dramatically. He's still kind of nerdy. It's really fun to see The Rock walk around with a fanny pack. But he puts forth this clueless persona, though he really wants something. Hart apparently is an expert at computers, and The Rock character is now a CIA agent who needs his help in order to track down the thing before the bad guys get the thing before the thing, because the plot means nothing. It's all about chemistry here between these two guys.
So here's the thing for me about Kevin Hart. I love his humor. I love his humor because it kind of it's that kind of humor that just smacks you in the face. And I enjoyed that. And they do have good chemistry. My problem is that for me, The Rock is seemingly relying on his brute strength in every single movie I've ever seen him in. Except for one. He had that one with the girl where he was a football player. I forget what that.
Tooth Fairy. Wait, no, not
No,
Tooth Fairy.
it was another one where he's a football player. He gets injured and he has to take care of this little girl that he finds out might be his.
Yeah.
That's the one I like him in. That's the one where I really truly feel like I have an emotional resonance with him. In this one, I like the geeky tendencies. I like how The Rock is basically showing him the ropes, Kevin Hart the ropes of the CIA. The MacGuffin, like you said, means nothing, but I didn't really buy their friendship or them working together. It just didn't mesh with me. I don't know what it is. With me, I need the characters to be... I need there to be an emotional component that says, okay, not only have these characters changed, but they grow together. And I didn't feel like they grew together. It's kind of like they grew through the process of being with each other, but it was a separate growth rather than one where the realizations came together. It felt like a bit of a mess to me because it was all action scenes, little bits of Kevin Hart's signature humor, and, you know, The Rock being the action show-off he is. I don't know what it would take for me to really like The Rock in a comedy. Maybe that's my problem, is that I've just never really bought him as a guy who I could relate to or be friends with, and I need that emotional component where I feel sympathetic for him. Like, I do feel sympathetic for him in the flashback, but not enough to make me go, oh, you know what? That was a Class A performance. You look at something like 21 Jump Street. You've got Janko, and I forget the other guy's name.
Your mom.
Okay, we'll go with that. So Janko and my mom. So in that, you have these two guys who really shouldn't be friends, but they end up being friends because in the very origin of the film, they start supporting each other. And while they have their moments of jealousy and pettiness, you see them work together, and you're like, oh, these guys are a well-oiled machine. They're really yin and yang. Even though that yin and yang is sort of sold in Central Intelligence, I don't buy it as well as I bought it in 21 Jump Street. Maybe it's because I just saw 21 Jump Street, and that desensitized me to the bromance. I don't know. What did you think of Central Intelligence, Chuck?
Well, I don't think you've seen enough of the Rock's films then, if you have a hard time with him and if you think that he just uses his brute strength to get by in a movie. I think he's an incredibly talented man. I think he has charisma to spare. I think he's incredibly likable. Get Smart, he had a great comic role there. The Gridiron Gang, as hokey as it was, I could see him really trying there. What about the moment in this film in which he encounters the old bully played by Jason Bateman?
I do like that moment. It's a genuine moment.
It's a genuine moment. Look, you're looking for some sort of emotional resonance that this film is not prepared to give you. This is a shoot-'em-up movie, buddy. You weren't looking for an emotional resonance when you were watching 21 or 22 Jump Street, were you?
No.
Well, then, you know, you can't be looking for it here because it's basically the same movie.
So you're telling me to just, if it happens, be surprised by it, but otherwise don't expect it?
This is not Citizen Kane. What about Pain and Gain? Did you see that?
I did.
We're out of our comfort zone there as far as The Rock. He's not just being, lift things up and throw things around.
True.
Did you see Hercules?
No, because...
See Hercules.
Okay.
Because that was an underrated film. A very underrated film. Gem and the Holograms, he's in that too, but I didn't see that.
Is he really?
Yeah, he had a cameo. Let's see, he also made that one movie, which was it, in which his son was arrested.
Oh!
And he has to be a decoy in order to get him out, Snitch, with Susan Sarandon. That was a good movie, and it had nothing to do with him being Mr. Braun. I think he's an incredibly talented guy, and I think that in years from now, maybe 10, 15, we'll be seeing him being nominated for an Oscar in a supporting role. You mark my words, it's going to happen, because I think he is that talented, and he's that smart about his career, because he's going back and forth between serious stuff, action stuff, and comedic stuff.
Did you see the thing he did with Ballers on HBO? That's a really good role for him.
That's a good part, too, where he's the ex-athlete who's the sports agent.
Exactly, yeah,
Exactly.
I love that.
He is really, you can't change your persona overnight. Stallone tried it, and Schwarzenegger tried it, and there was backlash. You've got to take baby steps, and I think Eastwood was the best at that.
How so?
Going from, well, if you would have told me that The Man with No Name was going to then star 30 years later in the Bridges of Madison County and be completely believable, I just said, you are out of your mind. Have to take baby steps with that. Stallone tried to do comedy too quick. No one bought it, and the comedies were crap.
Oh, come on, I like Demolition Man.
I didn't consider that a comedy. Stop or My Mom Will Shoot.
That
Do we need to talk?
ridiculous.
Okay. Schwarzenegger, I think, was a little bit better because he took it slower. Kindergarten Cop was the perfect role for him, and that opened up a lot of things for him. And I think you see The Rock doing the same thing here. I like this movie. I can't stand Kevin Hart.
Okay.
I can't stand him. The Rock, for me, made him bearable. Okay, because I like their chemistry. Come on, the marriage counseling sequence.
Okay, yeah.
That was funny as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really funny. Again, comedy movies and sex movies, you shouldn't really review because what's funny to you might leave me cold. What's funny to me, you're like, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah.
And the same with sex
This
movies.
is exactly what you just said is exactly why we're opposite on Central Intelligence.
Yeah.
It's because even though I enjoy Hart's comedy, I still didn't feel that much of an emotional resonance beyond the flashback and the marriage counseling scene. I don't know. Maybe my perspective on The Rock will shift in coming years because I know he's got a lot of stuff coming out. I'm particularly excited for Baywatch.
Out of all the movies
As
that he has coming out, you are excited for Baywatch.
Because I know he is going to come up with a bunch of really ridiculous puns and well, he won't be creative control,
I was
obviously.
going to say, it's the script.
But I'm sure that they're
You're
putting
killing
him
me,
in the
Chike.
David
You're
Hasselhoff
killing me.
role.
You're
So
killing
I'm
me.
excited for what he might do with that. Same thing with Zac Efron. He's starting to play a bit against type.
When? When is he starting? All he's done is make one stupid comedy after another.
Yeah, but at the same time, he knows that's what people are going in for.
Look, I just said you need to take baby steps in order to change your persona.
And you
but
know,
that kid is stagnating.
really?
I think so.
I mean,
Zac Efron?
I think We Are All Your Friends is an evidence to your point.
Yeah, no one wanted to see that. He's done the 2 Neighbor movies. He did Dirty Grandpa, which was an awful, stupid comedy. He's got this Mike and his brother thing, Need Dates thing. 'Cause it's
Yeah,
coming
I
up.
think that's
We've
gonna
got
be bad.
Baywatch coming up. Dude, he needs a new agent. He needs a new agent. 'Cause
I
he
agree-
needs to see some different kind of scripts.
I agree with you because he is mostly just doing
He's
comedies.
stagnating.
So he needs to find something that allows him to branch out a bit more,
Yes. Here's what's coming up for The Rock. Doc Savage.
which I'm excited for.
Wow, I thought you were excited about Baywatch. Mona, the next Disney animated film, which there was a preview on in front of Finding Dory. He plays a Hawaiian god, the voice of. Shazam, in which he plays the villain, Black Adam, in 2019. That's going to be great, and they are remaking Jumanji with him in the lead role, as well as Jack Black.
So I mean, there's time for my opinion on The Rock to change. I guess.
It's past time.
Okay, I see.
Okay.
I see your point.
That's just my opinion, but what do I know?
I see your point.
He was the best thing in Fast 5, by the way.
Okay, that is true.
Fast 5 was the best movie in there.
Yeah, that is true. I was going to ask you because it is coming up here. Have you seen any of Mr. Robot?
No!
Still no.
Quit bugging me about Mr. Frickin' Robot. I'll get to it when I frickin' get to it.
I know.
Oh, we also had a good cameo in The Other Guys, remember?
Oh wait, yeah, he did.
Him and Samuel Jackson died there within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, that was so great.
That was good.
So,
I know, Mr. Robot. You get a boner over Mr. Robot. You can't wait for Mr. Frickin' Robot. I'll get to this robot, okay, before he gets rusty, I promise.
okay. So, next week we're gonna have a week off. The week following that, what are you excited about?
Tarzan.
Yeah, Tarzan.
Tarzan.
Okay, we're gonna have to see that either separately or together. And until then, you can find my reviews at thewheelchairwatcher.com. You can find Chuck's reviews at thenewsgazette.com or theillinoistimes.com, in which he promises at some point you'll see Mr. Robot. And I also will try and catch the Neon Demon so that we can talk about Nicholas Winding Refn's new film.
Yeah, not sure how long that one's going to be around, but
Not sure.
an
but
interesting guy.
I'm sure that they're going to play it at the art. Speaking of the art, they are also going to be showcasing the BFG in the coming weeks at the art theater. I don't know why they're going mainstream. That's dollars in their pocket. Okay, kids movie. So until then, we will see you guys later. Bye, guys.